government economy, if I can say that. If I may, please, Mr. Waziri, I'm sorry you said I was limited to only 2 questions. Allow me to say this. I also
Since you are representing the public,
yes,
and give you another chance to ask the last question.
that is Mr. Waziri speaking. Thank you so much. Mr. Waziri, you said that the government, or rather let me say about the National Treasury, has given that urge to bank loans, to give loans to the Kenyans. But from where I stand, 25% of Kenyans who take loans, they end up being put to CRB. And if they end up being put to the CRB, the loan will not end up being paid, and they'll drag the economy down. So what is the Treasury doing about that to make sure that those loans and the economy, the money flow is coming down, as they say, with...
My friend, if... Or your vote. Okay.
Thank you, Honour Waziri. I'm Victor Madala from the Star newspaper. My question is around the recent executive orders by the US. We really have the National Treasury evaluated the overall implication of those orders to our economy.
So I will ask my PS National Treasury just to note that I will address the question of IMF program coming to an end and what we are likely to do. That answer I know is there. James, I'm sure you got your question very well, but even the others that I'll take, if my PSS will feel free to chip in when I give them the platform so that they can improve on my answers. On the issue, the first one, by George Oweno, you've asked a question around corridor. Thank you. So, George, you asked about Kenya Power and Lighting Company, that it has been showing profits. Is this likely to be passed to the general public? Yes, this should be passed to the general public in terms of reduced tariffs. And George, if you are keen, you will realize that your electricity bills, from the reports I have been going down. But if that is not sufficient enough, the government will take measures to pass the benefits to the consumers, because cost of energy is a concern of government to lower the cost of energy and to help economic growth. You have asked me whether we have seen improved production in the country, creating more jobs. I will tell you that the answer is yes and the answer is no. We have not seen a lot of expansion in the job market as we would want to see. Why? Because extension of credit to the private sector has been depressed almost throughout the year 2024. And you can see clearly from the data that that extension of credit contracted instead of expanding by 1.4%. The measures that we have taken sector so that private sector can borrow from banks, invest, expand, and create more job opportunities. So we are likely to see the benefits of reduced interest rates in the coming months. Brian Otieno, do we expect a finance bill? Yes. Simply put, it is a constitutional requirement. You know, many Kenyans have been asking why we must always have a finance bill. As a matter of fact, it is provided under Chapter 12 of our Constitution that every year we must prepare a finance bill. What is not a must is to have a finance bill with increased rates of taxation. So no one says that that finance bill must always have increase in our taxes. It can have a decrease, it can remain the same, but we will have to produce a finance bill. However thin, it may even be the size of this, my hand, so long as you have a finance bill to meet the constitutional requirement. So that going forward, and we have started public engagement, you will see. And you asked how we will finance the 4.2 trillion. There is also a misconception in this country that you need a new finance bill all the time to finance the budget. That is not true. Even without a finance bill, we have tax rates that are obtaining. Finance bill only vary the rates, change them, increase, reduce. But we already have a law in place. We have a legal framework for all taxes. So we can use the same tax rates to raise revenue to finance this budget. And by the way, if you look at our projected revenue for this year, the coming year 2025-26, you will see that we are more realistic in our revenue collection. The figure that was provided earlier, especially on ordinary revenue, of 3,818 billion, has since been revised downwards to 2,835 billion. So that shows you that the Treasury is walking the talk. We don't want to just say that we have been over-projecting revenue without taking action. We have taken action. Even in the supplementary budget that is going to Parliament, you will see that we have revised downwards revenue projection to reflect on the reality. Linda Koskea is asking me about the payslip and the tax policies that are being taken or implemented to help cushion Kenyans. Linda, if you are keen enough, when we took the tax laws amendment bill in Parliament, one of the objectives of that tax laws amendment bill was to give some reprieve to salaried Kenyans. And that is why I was very unhappy with people who are distorting facts and inciting Kenyans against that bill, because it was helping cushion Kenyans. If you take, for example, your employment, the contribution to housing levy, contribution to SHA are now allowable for tax purposes. So you don't double tax for. You are saving basically what you were contributing before to those two institutions is saving you at least about 30% for those who are earning salaries of about 38,000 and above. So we will still take other measures that we think will help Kenyans have more money in their pocket. But already there are steps that we took. Now your pension, if you are retiring, you will take your pension home gross. It will not be taxed. So that to me is positive. Those are steps that we took in December to cushion Kenyans. So contrary to the perception out there that we were bringing taxes that would burden Kenyans, we brought those proposals which were making Kenyans have more money in their pockets. The question from Buru was largely on IMF, which my peers will respond to. You are doubting whether KRA has been meeting targets. It is true that in the first 6 months, KRA did not meet the targets, more particularly July, August, September, and also we had a problem in November. But in October, KRA met the target. In December, we didn't meet the target, but the target was way very high. January have shown very positive signs. It is not true that we didn't meet the target by 160, something that was mentioned. The target, we didn't meet target, especially on ordinary. The total revenue target we missed by 90 billion for the first 6 months. But we hope that this next 6 months we will not miss any target. Zakaria, GDP dropped from 5.2 to 4.6. Now that is growth, not GDP falling. It's simply saying that in 2023, GDP grew by 5.2%, meaning it increased by 5.2. In 2024, it increased with 4.6, which is lower than 5.2. And we have explained, why that was so. The civil unrest for about 3 months, you don't expect the economy to grow when people are all over in the streets. People are not doing businesses. So that contributed to that. And that is simply the reason. Economic planning will respond to you. Banks to give loans, defaulters. One of the ways of reducing defaulting, there are two. In my view, one, reasonable interest rates charged by banks. The moment banks start lowering interest rates, you reduce the rate of default. Two, the government, which is the single consumer of goods and services, must pay for goods and services supplied to government. So we should not have pending bills. That is why there's a deliberate steps being taken by government to make sure that we don't accumulate further and even settle the historical pending bills. On the issue of USA and the new president, which is the last one that I'll take, every country acts in their best interests. The US and the government of US will act in what they consider is in their best interest. It is still not very clear the policies and what the US government wants to implement and the cuts. But we are prepared as a government that should the cuts affect some critical services, especially health and agriculture, then we will have to realign our budgets in a way that will help sort out or plug the hole that will be left. It will be difficult. It's not only Kenya which will be affected. US is the world's largest economy. Whatever they do affects all of us. So this is not going to be a Kenya problem. It will be a global problem, but domestically, we must be sufficiently prepared and respond accordingly to make sure that we mitigate the possible effects of those decisions and actions. Otherwise, allow me again to invite PS National Treasury to pick up from where.
I think I'll just give some statistics, especially for KRA performance, just for your log. In July, we had a target of 234 billion. We collected 199, so we had a deficit of 35 billion. In August, we had a target of 198 billion. We collected 173, so we missed the target by 25 billion. So you can see the months that we had issues, July and August, we lost 60 billion. And September, which is normally a tax month with a high target of 247 billion, we collected 236 billion, and leaving a gap of only 11 billion. Then October, there was a target of 201 billion, and KRA managed to collect 207 billion. That means it overperformed by about 6.7 billion. In November, it missed by 10 billion. In December, it missed by 16.5 billion. And this January, which I referred to when I talked about earlier, our target was to raise, we want to raise, actually let me not go through all that. We want to raise 209, but we collected 206, missing by 3.5 billion. And this was because of domestic taxes. There was a change in the tax laws that now require that if you are collecting excise tax, you have given 5 days instead of 24 hours. So because of that, the money that would have been collected in January now has been collected in February. Otherwise, this month of January, KRA would have met the target. I just wanted to correct that. Then on the issue of Kenya Power, I also want to add to what CS says, that before, when we started the reforms, Kenya Power was in a bad situation. And the aim was to restore medium-term profitability. So by end of 2022, the liquidity gap that Kenya Power had was 74 billion. Through the reforms that we have undertaken, the gap now is at 18 billion. So, and you have seen the results for Kenya Power. They have recorded 9.9 billion shillings as surplus after tax. And this just half year. That means if they double, we could get about 18, which will close the gap that we still have, that liquidity gap that we had. If we do that, that means now the consumers can begin to enjoy the profitability that will come. But already consumers are benefiting from the progress made on the macroeconomic stability, especially on the exchange rate having been brought down from around 160 to 129 over the last almost 1 year. And so consumers, the pass-through effects must be that the bills now must be much better than they were earlier. I want to now talk about the IMF program. the IMF program was approved by the board in April 2021 in the previous government. And the funding was about $2.3 billion. And the main aim of that program was to ensure we do fiscal consolidation, because our debt had been rated high risk. Remember 2013, we had a low risk. By 2018, we had gone to medium risk. And by 2020, we were at high risk. So this program was meant to address debt vulnerabilities, that we reduce debt growing. So the idea was it has to be a revenue-driven fiscal consolidation, meaning we focus more on revenues. And so the program had nine reviews, and when we were in the 5th review, we got a new addition called RSF, Resilient Sustainability Facility, which is focusing on climate. So the whole amount of IMF program now moved from 2.3 to $4.2 billion. We have implemented the program, and you will be aware the board approved both the 7th and 8th review. And now we are in our own reforms. And so our desire is that we continue discussing to go into a new program. So we will brief you at the appropriate time when we have had discussions with the fund. We are already engaged, but we will brief you more once we have progress made. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yes. I think, my friend, your question is very wide. But if you look at what the National Treasury and Economic Planning is doing now, what will be taken by the CS and the PS and the teams here, this is basically what is happening in what we are calling the economy. You are not seeing the economy, right? So this is actually that side of it in terms of what exactly is happening based on the interventions that the government is making in the various aspects of the policy. Now, regarding what we do, I just want to answer you maybe in a minute. One is that we set the targets. We set the objectives of what we want to achieve as a country, as an economy. You are aware about the Vision 2030 that was launched in 2008. One of the targets in that vision was that we want to grow, to move Kenya from a lower income country to a middle income country. Whereby now the standards of living has improved, the per capita income, our rates in terms of mortality and so on have improved. So this is where we are already, this is where we are as we speak right now, that Kenya has already, for example, attained a middle income country. That means then that when you look at the hard work that the team behind you is doing, is that then we are better off. We then lose on a number of other concessions and grants that we get, because then we need to be self-sufficient in terms of our planning. So that's just an example of one of the targets that we set. Coming to this particular time, as a government, there are 5 key objectives that have been set under what we call the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. And these are, among the 5, is one, for example, is to lower the cost of living. So when we focus on lowering the cost of living, the question we ask ourselves then, what is it and what are the interventions, what are the activities and programs that we need to have so that we can lower the cost of living? Now, if you look at the statistics, we can be able to see term plans, medium-term plans, like the 5-year plan, growth of this particular economy. So we set the objectives, and then we measure, we are able to measure how we are doing through what we call monitoring and evaluation. We look at the impact of our achievement and some of the projects that we have made, and then we also focus on reporting to be able to share or report on what is happening in the economy. I'm sure you are aware of, for example, the economic survey. On a monthly basis, we produce some data, statistics on the CPI, on what we're doing. On a quarterly basis, We have the Kenya Economic Report, which looks at the various policy intervention that the government is making and how the government is doing. And of course, through what the CS and the team has done today, I'm sure we are aware, we've been made aware of how we are doing. Thank you.
So I think with all that, as I promised and we promised, my team has promised you, we will be engaging periodically. This is just the first among a series of engagements we'll have. Briefings, this will be a tradition. This will not be a one-off thing. So you can hold your horses. Any other issues will be raised when we next appear here. Thank you very much, and God bless you. God bless you.
Tapi kata dia